Hello and welcome back to SQL in the City Streamed. My name is Chris.
And my name is also Chris.
And we're going to be taking you through a couple of the things, a couple of our recommendations for getting your compliant database DevOps journey started.
For those of you who don't know us, as Kendra mentioned, we host a podcast together.
It's absolutely true, where we drink beer, talk about database DevOps called DB Ale. So that's on Spotify and iTunes and other such mediums. But we are both pre-sales engineers here at Redgate Software, and our speciality is helping people just like yourself actually get started using these tools and start seeing value and innovation from them.
Cool, sounds good.
So Chris, let's start off. Here's a slide that maybe a few of these good people will have seen several times today, do you think?
Once or twice.
Once or twice. So just for the sake of myself then, and maybe for the sake of some people who have missed it, what is all this compliant database DevOps malarkey?
Well, it seems that you haven't been paying that much attention, unfortunately. I think we've covered this pretty well, so I'm not going to repeat what people have already seen. Essentially, there are the four key areas that we're focusing on for compliant database DevOps: the standardization, the automation, the monitoring, and of course the protection of that data as well.
Absolutely, that makes perfect sense. So we've been talking about a lot of techniques that we can use to actually put in place some of these processes to actually adopt compliant database DevOps. But maybe what we haven't talked about so much is the best place to start. How do we actually get started on this magical journey down the yellow brick road?
Absolutely, I think that's probably a natural question for a lot of the people at home as well. So, in response to that, we have a good place to start. We effectively have pulled together a collection of incredible resources, so things like white papers, so you can see exactly how people are getting started with this issue, or some use cases across the industry. We've got some reports, so the State of DevOps report and the State of Database DevOps report, I should say, of which there is a new version, I believe.
There is absolutely a new version. So Redgate's been doing a lot of research into this and have been looking to bring out their next State of Database DevOps report. And actually, those of you who pre-registered for today's SQL in the City Streamed are going to get a cheeky peek at that a little bit sooner than you may have thought.
So that should be emailed out to everyone who registered, I believe, around about a week or so.
Yeah, absolutely. So great insight. Before you even know it, it'll be there in your inbox.
And then beyond that, we also have the lovely Shift Left magazine. So if you'd like a little bit more of an informal look as to what other people are doing and just the state of the industry, then absolutely give that a look as well.
And absolutely, it makes sense to have this understanding of what people are doing around us. Certainly knowing that other people are shifting left or working more agile or adopting automation, these sorts of things. That's great, because if we've started to, I don't know, shift right, if that even is a thing, then we want to make sure that we pivot quickly on that and make sure we get back to the main focus, delivering innovation and value to our customers.
Absolutely. And if you want to access all of that resource, then there's the site on the website.
Yeah, so red-gate.com/solutions/resources.
We also have a lovely little tool that allows you to give you a taste of exactly where you are and how to begin.
This is true. We all love a good test, and that's a bit more than just saying, which Chris am I? We also want to know, yeah, okay, what are the industry doing, but what am I doing? Where am I? Because once you know where you are, it's easier to know where you're going to go. So on the Redgate site, under Solutions Maturity-Assessment, you can actually take a quiz which will help you figure out where you are on your compliant database DevOps journey and exactly what steps you've got in front of you so that you can start adopting better practices, better mindsets, better tooling, for instance. So you actually get that downloadable report, and it will really give you some real insight into how you're working as a team and how you're working as a company.
Cool, great. And if we want to know even more information, where can we go from there?
Oh gosh, well Chris, fortunately I have all the information for you. So if we wanted even more information besides this amazing maturity assessment, if we wanted some more insight into the industry at large, then we could go somewhere like the Redgate Hub.
What's the Redgate Hub?
You know what the
everyone
Redgate
asks.
Hub is, Chris. The Redgate Hub is obviously Redgate's one-stop shop for anything you might need for getting started, for more learning, and that is exactly where we put all of these wonderful resources. So whether it's in-depth articles, so we can actually read about some of the tools, about some of the concepts, whether it's our webinars, actually coming and seeing, meeting us, or even the community forums as well. There's a whole host of resources out there for you guys.
Cool. So let's take a look. And I think we're going to go through some of our favorite articles from the Redgate Hub. Yeah?
Absolutely we are. It was a tough choice.
So let's start with you.
Yep, absolutely. So obviously the first step on that Compliant Database DevOps journey is standardization. Obviously, Kathy has spoken about it at length this morning. Obviously, Kendra just there touched on that as well. And you've seen some really great principles there. But actually, some useful reading is something like the Building Better Test Data with SQL Provision article, which Steve Jones wrote.
I think this is an area that you pride yourself on knowing quite a lot about.
I do very much enjoy talking about standardization and data privacy and protection, but we'll get to that. Now, Building Better Test Data with SQL Provision is a great article, and the reason for this is that giving everyone copies of production can be the norm. In fact, lots of people that we speak to do still do copy downs of production for everyone to work on. And knowing what you've got in dev and test means that everyone gets a better, and I'm going to use this probably several times today, but we get a better baseline for where everyone is. And knowing that one person's change in a copy of the database could then, how exactly that's going to play out on other people's databases, and ultimately once it makes it up to production, how that's going to perform. It makes the process a lot more easy and a lot more predictable, and certainly in a world that's changing so quickly, predictability can be a real boon. And Steve really does take you through a fantastic sort of setup with SQL Provision and how to really get started standardizing development and test environments.
Great. So we standardize our development environment, we take some changes, we commit it onwards, and then the next step, of course, as we've seen from Tom earlier, is looking at automating the delivery of that out to our various environments. And for that, I've picked out a particular article that I think is especially cool, and that's this article here from Phil Factor. It effectively details how you can use a PowerShell-driven process to essentially, well, drive SQL change automation to deliver changes from your source control environment out to your specific target repositories. And what's really great about this is it includes not only some kind of basic need-to-know information, so there's some great info there about NuGet packages, exactly what they are, defining them, and then there's an example script that we can take away, we can adapt, we can maybe just plug in, give it a whirl.
And it's fantastic because with something like PowerShell, it's not a conversation you have often where you approach someone who's perhaps a database administrator or a developer and you say, hey, check out this funky thing I can do with PowerShell. And they go, PowerShell, what's that? So it's really something that a lot of people will understand. And again, it's a really, really great place to get started.
Absolutely. Then moving on from that, once we've got that change that's been driven into our production environment, the next step is to make sure that that environment is then well monitored and maintained. So we have SQL Monitor. Everyone loves SQL Monitor, of course. And there's one particular facet of that that is highlighted in this particular article that I really love, and that's around blocking processes. So identifying like which processes are being blocked. So not only the scope of what's being blocked, but also specifically how you can track back and find your lead blockers or head blockers.
Sure, and it makes perfect sense to want to look into these sorts of things because, as Kendra quite rightly said in the session previous, it's not all about whether it's up or down. Sometimes it is about that performance, how it's actually impacting our end users, and that's the thing that's going to define what makes our process great. And blocking processes are something that everyone has to deal with. They're right up there with spikes in CPU or long-running queries. These are all problems that we want to be able to really easily troubleshoot, get to the root of, and fix as soon as possible. And certainly this article here is probably the best one we could recommend to get started in this area.
terms of just general inefficiencies in your code, once the change has been pushed out to that production environment, we don't just forget about it, we look to forever optimize and learn and improve, right? So any way that we can do that.
Gosh, it almost sounds like you're preaching some kind of agile, iterative process here, Chris.
Exactly right.
Fantastic. Well, we did not cover one little segment there of that wheel that we've been through so far. We've been through standardize, automate, monitor.
Okay, so let's complete the entire process.
Absolutely. So something that's very, very close to my heart, and certainly if you've stayed at a Marriott hotel recently, it'll be very close to your heart. But
So why are you pulling up that specific example? Have you had a bad experience here?
well, I may have stayed at one recently as well. Oops.
A little bit bitter?
No, definitely not. So data privacy and protection is obviously a massive thing. We've got a whole host of legislative requirements that basically, well, it's legislative requirements and also our own business directives that are telling us we need to protect data. And we can't just go ahead and, as I said before, copy down production data necessarily into pre-production for the sake of giving our devs and testers the most realistic data to work on. And that's obvious because pre-production environments are never going to have the same level of kind of security as you might find on production. So we need some techniques for actually protecting that data, and a call out to the GDPR specifically here, but we need to protect it by design and by default.
You do love that phrase.
I do love that phrase. Now, this particular article, written by Redgate's own Grant Fritchie, the scary DBA, is a basic technique for masking address data using Data Masker, one of Redgate's tools. Now, he tackles the AdventureWorks schema, and he really takes you through the journey that is, how do I take a job, something so potentially beastly as masking a database, and how do I segment this up? How do I actually tackle it in the most kind of proactive and efficient way possible? Now, he goes through this, he puts some specific techniques in there. You can actually kind of follow along with it if you want to just go ahead and install Data Masker if you've got a copy of AdventureWorks. I know I've got about 50. But actually working through that really helps bring you together with the concept of how data masking is supposed to be and how straightforward it can be once you get your head around the concepts. Of course, there's one other article there, the data catalog coming of age. Something incredibly important as well is knowing where your data is in the first place, because if you don't know where it is, you can't protect it.
Exactly, yeah. And that really does bring us full circle, because that is then touching on that provisioning aspect we were discussing with the standardization piece.
Quite right, and it is just that same iterative process over and over and over again, and that's what makes up Compliant Database DevOps.
Absolutely. So you might be thinking, I've got some great articles to look at. They've pointed me in the direction of some tools.
I have.
Specifically from Redgate. Where do I go next? And the next logical step, once again from the hub, would be Redgate University.
Absolutely. I mean, Redgate University is something that we've been working on for some time, but what does it mean for the people out there?
It's effectively a series of videos where we detail, well, in great detail, how to use, how to configure, how to set up the Redgate tooling and get the most out of it. It features people such as us.
Such as us, and if you can, bring yourself to get past our faces, there's some wonderful information in there as well on how you can adapt the Redgate tools, how you can improve on your processes and do some really cool things.
Absolutely, and more content coming out all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. We just finished recording a couple of days ago some more content. How much content can we deliver? The answer, all of the content.
And if you do want even more content, well then the next stop, I guess, would be the webinars. Absolutely.
Webinars are a great place to learn, and it's our way of engaging Redgate with the community and saying, well, hey, here are some ideas, let's actually explain them, let's work through and bring people towards this concept in a nice, kind of straightforward, easy to understand way. And they don't just have to be like 2-hour sessions where it's an absolute marathon. It's about getting things across in a nice, concise way, whether you're listening to Arne Eskandari, Redgate's resident superbrain, talking about accelerating innovation, or whether it's listening to Redgate's partners and friends, people such as Gene Kim talking about the 2018 Accelerate State of DevOps report.
Or even yourself, I noticed.
Or even myself, absolutely. It's just, that was a nice 30 minutes introduction to Compliant Database DevOps, something that you could fit into a lunch and learn perhaps. So if you want to take these concepts you've been learning about today and share them with other people, that's a really great place to start as well.
And once again, we're continuously producing more content there. So go to the hub and explore not just what's already pre-recorded, but what's coming out in the future. And if you'd like even more of us and our colleagues, then there's plenty of events. So on the events page, you'll see the events that we're going to and the events that we're hosting.
We have been to a number of events in 2018. We went to IAPP in Edinburgh. We went to
Future Decoded.
Future Decoded in London. And of course, we went to Redgate's SQL in the City Summit in London, which was an absolutely amazing event. One of collaboration, communication, networking, fun, and just some downright nice people to talk to, all of whom were on a similar point in this scale of adopting DevOps. And they were working with each other as well as Redgate to further improve this process and truly adopt these ideas.
Yeah, me and Chris both love talking to people about their environments, the challenges they face, and hopefully solutions that we can provide to overcome those as well.
Absolutely. So if you want to stay up to date with what Redgate are doing, where we're going to be, how you can meet us, how you can get Chris's signature, then just go to that red-gate.com/hub/events page, and you'll be able to stay up to date all through the year with where we're going to be and how you can meet us.
Absolutely. So I guess in summary, the Redgate Hub, it's the one-stop shop for all of your content, whether that be articles, webinars, the events page, Redgate University. We also have the forums. There's so much there. So if you're sat there thinking, what do I do next? This is exactly it.
I couldn't agree more. So I think that's about it for us. So one thing just left to say, which is thank you so much for tuning in to SQL in the City Streamed. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you. I know it's a huge thank you here from the Redgate team. But for now, have a great rest of the week, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.
Cheers.
Cheers.